Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Alka Halberg. I am part of the Cohesive Marketing team. I will be assisting the team today with the webinar as moderator. We will give it another 30 to 60 seconds to allow all the attendees to join us today. Great. I think we can start. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on minimizing risk and improving ROI of your mass upgrade. In this webinar, you will learn the status of mass, biggest changes and considerations, a roadmap to make a step change in the maintenance and reliability model, various upgrade scenarios and upgrade paths to match your goals, how to minimize disruptions costs at risk of your mass upgrade, as well as how to improve ROI with mass, leveraging out-of-the-box functionality to expand use and increase effectiveness of the tool. Before we start, I would just like to highlight some administrative tasks. Note that this webinar will be recorded and distributed post-webinar. All the attendees are currently set to listen-only mode, but feel free to post any questions or comments in the chat or question box. We will address these at the end of the webinar. Should you have any technical questions or problems, please log it with the GoToWebinar technical team in the form of a question mark or help section on the panel itself. Right, I will be handing over to the host in a bit, but let me do an introduction of our speakers and Cohesive first. Our speakers for today are Tyler Stevens. He works in change management and strategic advisory for Cohesive. Then we have Joe Longen, Senior Solutions Manager at Cohesive. Bill Wallace, Principal Technical Consultant, and lastly, Jeff Yazinski is a Director of Hosting Services at Cohesive. Working across all stages of the life cycle, Cohesive helps owner-operators embed digital ways of working that drive operational efficiency and enhance asset performance. Cohesive draws on core tech solutions to support its clients. These solutions include Bentley's Infrastructure Cloud, iTwin, and IBM Maximo, for which Cohesive is the largest implementer. Right, without further ado, let's dive in and hand over to our first speaker for today, Tyler.
Thanks, Elke. So from Maximo to Mass, we can go into the next slide, please. So Maximo, so what is Mass? Mass is an acronym for Maximo Application Suite. So why change the name? Maximo is a great name. Now think of it as Mass because there's multiple applications to fully deliver enterprise asset management. Maximo, for all its glory, used to have a little bit of limited capabilities, specifically with AI reliability strategies, to where even though it could deliver a lot of solutions, it still had some limited capabilities. Now, IBM was able to create multiple AI applications to where you can deliver full-on lifecycle management from start to finish. You don't need as many third-party softwares. So from this, you can think of it as multiple AI powered to where there's future proofing, and you still have all your industry solutions and your add-ons. So none of the industry solutions went away. All your add-ons are still there. Think about it as there's now AI powered applications within Maximo. And then it can be deployed on-prem, on premises, in the cloud, or on both. So it was a big move to change from a security standpoint. So instead of the security getting from cloud, you're also getting now AI featured capabilities if you choose to use them. Next slide, please. So Mass is multiple applications. Manage is how your current Maximo environment looks. Manage can be similar compared to Maximo currently. So this is now intelligent asset management where it has AI features built in if you want to use them, or it'll very much resemble your current system you're in. Predict, that's going to be your AI features. Predict in health. Health will feed your predict model, and then you'll get all your AI prediction algorithms that feed into manage. This really helps you become more predictive, and we'll talk about predictive and reactive and proactive maintenance later on. A lot of these applications help with the overall aging workforce to bring in AI to help alleviate technicians leaving the field. Mobile, still mobile, but now it has a lot more smoother user interface, and we'll talk about it, and it's included in manage. We'll get that into the next slide, but you can do a lot of applications based in mobile as well as the AI features. And then monitor, one of my personal favorites. this helps you if you're unsure about AI, you're hearing a lot about AI. Monitor lets you take what data you have now, current and historical, and any sensors you have, and you start feeding in the data and seeing, okay, we have anomalies, vibration analysis, whatever it may be. We could feed it into our current system of Maximo, and we could actually start seeing where we're having issues. If you don't think you're ready for full-on AI, you don't need to use everything predictive yet. You can get into Monitor, one of my favorites, to where you set yourself up the correct data before you start using future AI tools. Visual inspection. This one's also really cool. You can do a lot of things mobilely, to where you could actually take pictures of assets, anything that's dented within tolerance, out of tolerance, within review. You can take pictures and you could simply drop a filter on top of it, drag and drop filter, characterize it, and then you can start saying vertical, horizontal, and just a few pictures that you take turns into hundreds of pictures. And now you can start saying what's in tolerance, what's out of tolerance, and you can pretty much alleviate the gray area to where your system now knows, based on what you define, whether assets are needed to be checked, or within inspection, you could actually build that data of what's good and what's not. Assist, one of my favorites. This pretty much takes that 30-year workforce experience from technicians and embeds it into Maximo. You can create fault isolation trees that go into your asset registry, to where now you can have all the experience that you had, and you could have uh, characteristics built in, how to do procedures correctly, to where you could break down everything instead of just manage that has work orders. You can now have full on fault isolation, troubleshooting help, information that previous technicians had. You can embed all that information into Assist, and that could also be done on mobile. And then 360 health, or 360 view of assets being health, and that goes into the predict model. That's where you see your criticality score, your health score, to where you can actually see where is the entire organization health. You can drill down into hierarchies. You can start seeing where are my assets from health wise before they go into failure or before they lose decreased efficiency. And then schedule, it's been optimized. It used to be a little clunky and harder to use. Scheduler is very much smoother now, and that's included within manage. We'll talk about that in a second. And then safety, very similar to health, safety, and environment, but safety uses your AI driven, your IoT sensors, to actually say, hey, something is going wrong from a safety perspective. This needs to be looked at. And then from an IBM Cloud Pack, just the areas that you can deliver on, whether it's AWS, Azure, just capabilities that Maximo can be deployed to. Next slide, please. And then manage is where I talked about if you're currently in Maximo, this is what manage is today. It's a full-on application of what you used to have, essentially. And then mobile and scheduler are now included in manage. They're not separate licenses. So if you're like, hey, I just want to get into a new software, I was told to move into upgrade, then you're going into manage, and then you get mobile and scheduler. So even if you're like, if you're upset about having to be forced into move, now you get mobile and scheduler for free, and scheduler is much more easier to use. And mobile has a lot better user interface. So all three are used, and all your queries go into any of the AI applications as well, and they all feed back in. So everything's easily used later on. Next slide, please. So in the application suite license model, if you're saying, well, now there's no longer licensing, what do I need to do? Now you have what's called app points, and you have 4 different types of users, and you share a pool of app points. So if you have some users that are just using service requests or minimally used, they're not going to use any app points. We'll get into that on the next slide. But for here, you're like, well, I don't know what all I need to use yet. That's fine. Or if you want an industry solution, you don't need another license anymore. You simply just need app points. And you could have certain users that are using a lot of applications or industry solutions. They'll just use app points. And now you can pick and choose what you need to actually fit you instead of just buying a bunch of licenses. You just use your app points, and you can distribute those that actually make sense. And the next slide, please. So then you have 4 types of users: self-service, limited, base, and premium. So as I said, with the self-user, you can just do service requests. That doesn't cost any app points. So you can have multiple. So if you have contractors coming in that just need to do certain requisitions, or they need to create certain things, they don't need to come in and have full-on license. And then certain users that will use certain modules, and then modules have applications. They also use limited application points compared to the others. So whatever you need your users to do, you can have the appropriate app points to where it's not just having multiple licenses, you're actually having app points needed. And then we look at premium users, and then you get all the AI tools. So it's, if you're worried about, well, how much more expensive is AI, it's just uses more app points instead. So if you have a lot of users not using app points, it can be very similar cost based on how many app points your users actually use. And then as you see what you need, you can change your app points. And then next slide, please. So this is asset performance management, where I talked about Maximo with all its capabilities. Personally, I didn't see it have great performance management and reliability strategies. Now it does. And now we see historical events being reactive, preventative, predictive, and proactive. And we'll talk about that later on in this presentation. Now we could actually reinforce our data, improve. How are we reactive? What does that cost? What if we're preventative? And what happens when we start being proactive with condition-based indicators and we start predicting when things are going to go bad? So we have appropriate lead times and our requisition is correct and our scheduling and planning. Now we become more financially optimized. We can actually do asset investment planning, capital-based O&T to where we, or O&M, to where we can start making the correct decisions based on our assets coming from our management policies and plans and strategies, to our whole system feeds in backed by your data to where you can make the correct investment decisions. And then next slide, please. And then asset performance management. Very similar. You have your IoT devices, and then what is your system ingesting? And then you also use your historical data. And you get to comb your data to see, hey, are these sensors, is this what we're looking at appropriately? And once you deem this is correct, this is the data we want, feed that into your analytics. And then your analytics goes into all your applications that you need to make the appropriate performance management decisions. That goes into your performance software. You start predicting correctly. You start seeing failures in advance when you know you need to make the appropriate decisions on downtime, on scheduling, on outages. How much can you bring into an outage? And then we go into our APIs with our work order, our history. All that feeds into our investment and our long-term capital plannings, to where your system can now fully back your decision of, hey, we need X amount of dollars. Here's our budget. Here's how we're going to use our budget. And you can back it up. Well, why do I need X amount of dollars? Because of our assets and their performance based on our own data. Next slide, please. So what are we doing? We have a free mass upgrade evaluation. And if you can't scan it right now, we're showing the same slide at the very end. So what do we want to do? We want to reduce the risk that when you're going from your software into a new upgraded one, you're not worried that when you flip that switch, you go live and you're in a new production environment, that there's any risk you're going to lose data, you're going to lose integration. We don't want to do any of that. We want to make sure that you seamlessly have perfect interaction on day one. This also, even though it increases confidence, I like to call trust, so that you have trust in us that, hey, we know that when you go into a new system, you're taken care of. And that builds confidence. And it's not just confidence in us, it's confidence in your users, that when they're going into a new software, a new production environment, they're confident in it. They know, hey, there's no issues. And then from an actual improvement, going into a new software, you're confident in what you're getting. And then from an improving readiness perspective, are you ready to go into the next, whether it's 8 or 9, what are you going into? Are you ready to go into that? We make sure, hey, there's certain things we have to do as prerequisites, or what is your appetite for going into applications? What do you need? Ultimately, we want to improve reliability in your system, in your technicians, in your workforce. We want to make sure that our upgrade process that is reliable, also make sure you're optimized. Are we taking 30-year-old processes that have never been looked at and just putting them into a new software tool? It's not going to do anything for you. It's just a tool. We want to make sure you're fully optimized. And then we want to prove this, that there is ROI. A lot of people will say they can do ROI. We show your data, show actual metrics, and we'll show that later on in the presentation, where you are actually saving money. My job isn't to make the company money. My job is to make you money. We want to show, here's where you're going to be more optimized based on these tools that you're getting that make sense for you. And then we'll show this slide at the end, and so you can scan it then. And then next slide, please. So now we'll go into a poll question, and I'll hand it off to Joe.
All right, great job, Tyler. Thank you. So yeah, before we jump into the next section, thank you all for joining us again. We'd like to ask you a question at this point. So for those of you that are joining us, and we'll share the details here, When is your organization upgrading to the IBM Maximo application suite? The pool should open for you, and you'll be able to make a selection. And then once that selection is made, hopefully everybody will be able to see that on screen. And if not, we'll be able to share the details at the end. So we'll just give it like 30 seconds to just under a minute here while responses come in. And basically you have some choices there. Are you thinking about it now, or are you thinking maybe sometime in the future? And it definitely helps us. It might help us to interact with you. It probably will help in your own thinking to consider, do I have all the details that I need to make this decision? So far we have just about half of the folks that have voted. We'll just give you just a few more seconds here. For those of you who've joined us again, just a poll here to find out when you're thinking about upgrading, or if you're already planning. Maybe some of you have already upgraded. So well over half, about 60%. So I think we can close the poll out there. And I think everybody got to see those on screen, but if not, we'll definitely be following up. So everybody that has joined us, or if you're seeing this afterwards, we'll definitely share those results from the poll. Looked like quite a few people were thinking about that, in the next 1 to 2 years, about, moving to the Maximo application suite, which is something that we've heard a lot, around the industry. So next slide, please, Bill. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, in section 2 here, about the process of moving to MAS and some of the upgrade pathways that we have, how we minimize cost and risk and disruption to the organization. Next, please. So we know from, just across the industry and in talking throughout the Maximo space at different events and sitting down with our clients directly, and everybody's taking a look at this, and they want to have a few things. They want to have confidence in this application suite. It's something new. There's some things that haven't changed, but there are a lot of variables that have changed that people want to consider. They want to have efficient and seamless upgrades. If you have a great process that you've deemed before, or maybe you've even had bad experiences in the past, you want that to go smoothly. You want to impart as little change and disruption to your work and your organization as possible. You want to achieve maximum value from this solution and continuously increase that ROI, because it is an investment for both the organization and into your technology. You want to increase reliability, not only of the systems that you're using, but the reliability that you're providing your organization, thus by reducing risk to the organization and extending your capabilities. So how do we determine if you can get all of these things as a client from an organization in the Maximo application suite? Next, please, Bill. So first we have to start by thinking about, how do we positively impact your organization? And Maximo application suite absolutely provides benefit to organizations when it is delivered and utilized in a way that's aligned to your business requirements. And that may or may not be the case today. If it is, we want to keep it and make it even stronger. And if not, we want to move you in that direction. So we know the common pitfalls and the complexities associated with the type of transition that you're looking at here. And both yourself and the organization and us, to help you with that, need to understand where you are today. Next, Bill. So as we take a look at where you are right now, we're going to look at things like licensing, the current system health, and functionally how you use the systems that you're using today. And that will give us a starting point to then take a look and build the requirements that are necessary for an upgrade and a transition to the application suite. Things like a continuous deployment, or whether or not you will potentially need to stay on a current version for a long amount of time. Whether or not your data is clean. Do you need enhancements to that data? Does your data need to transition itself, or can it simply be moved into the new system? Can you achieve a zero downtime, minimizing the impact and the risk to your organization? And is that required? Are you okay with a transition process that's necessary? Part of that will be based on also, is it a technical or business upgrade that you desire? And so it may be one or the other or both, where you just want the systems to be the newest, the most supported and compliant, or you may have business processes or changes and enhancements that you need to make to the system. And again, it could be one or the other or both that are very, very important to you. How is the infrastructure going to be handled? Do you already host it today? Would you like that to be hosted, or do you want to build that capability inside of your organization for the infrastructure that is required? And a lot of organizations are looking to decustomize, right? Let's remove the complexity. Let's take a look at capabilities that are already available out of the box, so it de-risks, future transition states, and potentially leveraging, more capabilities from the system that are not possible today based on how you use it. Next, please, Bill. So as we gather all those requirements, we're really defining a full scope of what's needed for the business. So it's not just about getting you on the newest version of a software. It's really understanding what the business needs so that you can then define a strategic approach for the organization and make a decision. Are we ready to go now, or is there work that we need to do, meaning we should postpone or schedule that as some of that work is being prepared, so that we can understand how the organization is impacted, or for changes to get in process, whether that be people, process, or technology. And that will help to complete, and we can provide then an upgrade methodology essentially, so that you get some comfort and confidence in that process. Next, please. So through that, then there are some required artifacts that will be created, or that we will gather through this process. And really what you're looking for is, what is the optimal license situation? Have you already converted to app points, or do you need to make that conversion? Do you need to increase, decrease, or right size the organization's usage? Through that, there will be key milestones and timing. Right? From a change management aspect, we want to minimize the impact of the organization, so that sequence things properly, but make sure that they happen in a necessary time frame. Understanding the cost and the full proposal, right? What's the value that we're receiving? What do we need to do to make this happen? Understanding the infrastructure, again, depending on whether it will be hosted, what is included, in hosting whenever you move to that, and Jeff's going to talk about that very shortly. And then potentially functional enhancements in a roadmap, right? So if I do want to start extending my capabilities, how do I get there? And what is that roadmap? What am I using today versus what we want the organization to be doing tomorrow? So next, please, Bill. Cohesive has a very specific approach to this. In our upgrade pathway, we add some offerings to this where Cohesive specializes. And so these offerings that are highlighted there, I'll describe quickly, that help us get the lay of the land, that we develop that baseline. And we provide extra data into those requirements as we're building the scope to make sure that you're making the right decisions and you do have confidence and comfort with the process. The first is a license check. So this is actually something that can be run against the system. It will take a look at current utilization and understanding whether you're sized appropriately today, and what the utilization is within the organization. Health check is a high-level review of the entire system that takes a look at what applications you're using, how is Maximo being utilized today, potentially finding some common issues that we see, so that it can help us to develop the roadmap or identify changes that maybe should be done as part of the implementation process, so that on the other side you're not actually carrying problems into the new system. The log analyzer dives deep. This is a very technical, specialized view, utilizing the logs from the system, and can tell us technically what's happening with Maximo from that high level down through to a very granular level. And so, there may be problems with your system that your users or yourself you're not even experiencing, but we can uncover those by reading the data from the system that's not typically viewable to front-end users. And then there's the functional assessment. And so this is more of a business assessment, understanding, using some of that data in this assessment to see, again, how you're using Maximo. Are you trying to do things today that could be easier by doing something different? And again, this analyzes people, process, and technology. That's all combined into advisory services, where we have SMEs with experience in your sector with Maximo and with specific business processes and data that will take a look at the information that's provided through those specialized services and gather the requirements in order to create that methodology for the implementation. So next, please, Bill. So de-risking the move to the Maximo application suite, I'm just going to hand over here to Bill and talk about how can we drive one of those requirement pieces that you saw there, which is considering a zero downtime upgrade. and some of the tools and services that we use to provide that. So with that, I'll hand over to Bill.
Thanks, Joe. So hi everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about the cohesive data utility, which we also refer to as the CDU. This is a toolkit that has been used on some of the largest implementations of Maximo globally to date, and it's something that's becoming a core piece of our upgrade methodology within Cohesive to assist clients in moving to mass, but also with any other technical challenges and upgrades where downtime and looking for that seamless upgrade experience that we discussed on previous slides. So this is going to be a little bit of a visual indication of how this solution works. So here, what I'm representing is your user base entering data into your current Maximo production system. The Cohesive Data Utility, CDU, would then be installed. Of course, this would occur after we've run through your dev and test environments, but we'll focus on production here. And we will activate what we call our change capture mechanism on your current Maximo production database. What this is now doing is tracking all of your user data changes. So not configuration, but anything to do with your assets, work orders, preventative maintenance records, inventory, purchasing, etc. All of those day-to-day data changes that the users are making are now being tracked by the CDU for us to pull into MAS later. What we can then do is, by taking a snapshot of the current Maximo production database or backup, we can take that away and complete the IBM Maximo upgrade process. Now that might have various upgrade versions depending on what version you're currently on. It may have various different complexities. Maybe there's issues that occur with the IBM tooling. But what this does is allows this process to take as long as is required, because your users still have not been affected and are still working away in your current Maximo production. So what does that leave us with now? We have a Maximo production where users are entering data, or where the CDU is capturing and knows of those changes, and your new mass version, which has all of the data that we took in that backup to do the upgrade upon, and all of your existing configurations that have now been upgraded. But we now need to pull through all of those data changes that the users have created. We map it to transform the data to be compatible with the new mass version that you're in, including any new fields you may have developed as part of any business enhancements. All of that can be automatically pulled through and set correctly in the new mass version. We can continue synchronizing this for as long as required. It's not quite in real time. It's done in a batch schedule, but it's fairly close to real time at this stage, or by the time we come to thinking of cutting over. At this point, you might choose to stop the synchronization and do some testing in the new Maximo. So you could go ahead and take a backup, and I'll show a slide visualizing that shortly. But essentially, you get to validate ahead of time in that new Maximo system that everything is working correctly before you go live. We no longer have the concern of, well, is this going to go well over the weekend or when we choose to start the outage? At this point, you've already upgraded ahead of time. Once you've had all of your users validate, you're ready to cut over. That's a case of turning off your current Maximo production. You might have some other cutover processing to complete, such as moving a reporting system or repointing integrations and various other technical challenges that you might have within your own infrastructure. But in that time, the CDU has synchronized all of that user data over to the new Maximo, and it's a case of your users now logging into the mass environment and continuing their day-to-day work. It really does give you full control over the time, not just the date, but the time you can go live into mass. So from a project perspective, how does that look? Well, today you might be sat working in a 7.x version, whatever version you're currently on, and you're gradually doing your migration packages for various different configurations through into production. Once you've either decided, right, we're going to start the upgrade, you may impose a change freeze. If you do not want to have a change freeze, then you have the option of, whilst you're building configurations in here, once we take this back up for the upgrade, any new configurations would have to also be applied through into MAS, unless we complete the upgrade again for you at a later stage. But assuming this is the final upgrade we would complete, the upgrade is done using a snapshot of your Maximo production database, like we showed in the previous slide, and then you move into having that database inside MAS. The CDU is then activated to start bringing over data, to actively sync the data from production. And then I mentioned you can then disable the CDU, have a manual backup of your database taken to allow you to complete testing and doing anything that in that environment that you want to prove it's ready to go. And something that a number of our clients take advantage of now is the ability to actually test on a production instance. Now, some people may ask, why would you do that? And what I always like to say is that I've had clients in the past where they've tested in UAT, but they didn't realize in production, actually, there was something missing, whether it was a network configuration or there was a hardware issue. By testing using your actual production environment, you actually not only test the configuration and the data, but you actually test the hardware and infrastructure that your users are going to move to as well. Once the testing is complete, you may have identified some changes that are required, so that backup is restored, changes are completed, and you could repeat that process if necessary. You might want to take another backup and do further testing. You could repeat that if required, but at this stage, now that we're in production, we'd hope that the very minimal changes occur. So once that backup is restored, the CDU will then be reactivated to continue pulling data all the way until cutover. So like in the previous slide, at that stage, you would choose to turn off your current production. The CDU will synchronize those finer data changes, and then you move forward into your MAS environment. I'm going to hand over to Jeff to speak about hosting.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Bill. Yeah, we've moved into a period of time where a lot of our customers are looking a lot closer at their hosting capabilities, right? So, and by hosting capabilities, really what I mean is the setup and the maintenance of IBM Maximo Application Suite, right? So I think, over the course of the next 5-10 minutes here, what I want to do is just walk through some considerations on why to pick a hosting provider, right? I think we have to recognize that there is a lot of different choices that we can take to deploy IBM Maximo Application Suite, right? So those choices have not necessarily changed, but there's a lot more considerations now. Obviously, with the technology changes, the platform change, there's a lot more to it, I guess. So what I wanted to do is talk about why cohesive hosting services and some of the considerations or implications around picking a hosting provider, okay? I think the number one thing is to reduce operational complexity. So the one thing that hosting or cohesive provides is all the infrastructure maintenance and the updates, right? So what this allows you to do is it allows you to focus more on the core business activities. We're going to take care of this for you, right? Again, this is the single biggest hurdle when moving from Maximo 761 to IBM Maximo Application Suite, right? Historically, what you see is you deploy Maximo, potentially this is on-premise or maybe in a public cloud provider. The deployment is significantly simpler, right? You've maybe got a couple servers, you've got a Windows server, you've got a Linux server, and you install WebSphere application server and it's deployed, right? Obviously, there's complexities there. The challenge here is the infrastructure components, right? So the Red Hat OpenShift platform, the tools that are required now for Maximo Application Suite, it's just a lot more challenging, right? For those folks who've done some level of evaluation on what the deployment looks like, there's just a lot more parts here, right? So the goal of a hosting provider is to reduce that operational complexity, right? Cost efficiency. So the cost of maintaining and updating infrastructure can add up. That's for certain, especially revolving the people time with this, right? So the setup time is quite, there's quite a bit of time that is required when you set up IBM Maximo Application Suite. There's a lot of considerations. There's design time. How do you deploy it? Do you have multiple OpenShift clusters? What does this look like? All of this sort of thing can add up, right? Hosting solutions often provide a little bit better cost predictability, right? And this can be more economic in the long run. So, there's a lot of uncertainty, I guess, when you're kind of putting your solution, or I guess IBM Maximo Application Suite on the cloud. Perhaps you're looking at putting it into Azure. maybe you're looking at AWS, or even within your own data center hypervisor, there's some things, or I guess some cost understanding that, isn't, there's some things that you're not fully aware of until it's fully deployed, right? So for example, there's some uncertainty around egress fees. Egress fees, for example, is fully included as part of Cohesive Cloud. Okay? Scalability. Scalability is another huge consideration when you're deploying IBM Maximo Application Suite. How do you scale up or scale down? Right. So, is there services, or do you have a process, or is there a methodology to being able to add additional workloads or worker nodes to your OpenShift clusters? Can you put them up? Can you bring them down? What does that process look like? So, Cohesive completely takes care of that for you. We also offer a level, so an offering level, and then also a tier system, which we put customers in. And those customers can move between those offering levels and as well as the tier level. So what we try to do is we look at what your organization needs, and we fit you into not only a proper offering level based on your requirements, as well as a tier level. Security and compliance. This is a really important aspect. We've got robust security measures, of course, and compliance certificates in place. These are often challenging, right? So, is your organization look at hardening the OpenShift platform, right? So there's a large number of efforts and tasks that are required to be able to provide that, right? Do you have a SSL certificate process? Right, so a lot of things have changed from Maximo 7.6.x to IBM Mass that need to be taken into consideration. Right, so Cohesive has a large number of accreditations through a third-party auditors, such as ISO 27001. We also complete penetration testing on all of our hosted solutions. And we're targeting November this year for our next audit compliance, or our next compliance audit. And then lastly is expert support, right? How are you going to support this system, right? There's a lot more challenges when it comes to OpenShift, right? Just from a technical perspective, troubleshooting is completely different, right? The log files are in different locations, right? So cohesive hosting services and Cohesive as a whole, we provide expert support, ensuring that any issues are resolved quickly and effectively. We do have a global cloud engineer team. So we've got cloud engineers based all over the world. We've got engineers in the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Indonesia, and then Brazil as well. So we've got folks all over the world ready to support you. And this goes back to really just de-risking the upgrade, right? We do have a process that we've done time and time again. We do some automation, which I'll talk about on the next slide, which ultimately lowers your cost when you're deploying IBM Maximo Application Suite, and it just becomes more effective. Next slide. Yeah, so about our hosted services, we've got 3 offerings when it comes to Cohesive Cloud IBM Maximo Application Suite. They're simple and they're clear, and they're just different offering levels. Typically what we do is we look at the exact requirements that you have, and that typically is things like size, complexity, features that you require. And then what we do is we look at what probably works best for you as an organization, and then you get fitted into a particular offering level. So we've got Cohesive Cloud Silver, we've got Cohesive Cloud Gold, and then Platinum. Okay. We do rapid deployments, right? So our system and our approach is completely automated. So we use something called Terraform. So Terraform is our automation tool of choice. We can deploy any one of our Cohesive Cloud levels, whether it's Silver, Gold, or Platinum, complete deployment in as little as 1 week. Okay, so typically it takes a little bit less than that. But for those that have gone through this process before, there's a few manual things that need to occur, right? So entitlements is a big thing, right? Which usually takes a couple days So there's requirements such as a Red Hat account. There's things like a IBM account. We typically take care of that for our customers, and then once we've got that all in place, we can use our automation to deploy the customer's environment. Okay? We provide full infrastructure managed services. So that is maintenance, patches, updates, and then security ultimately on everything. So everything that's required for IBM Maximo Application Suite to be deployed, we have a maintenance schedule where we do certain activities. So there's some activities that happen on a monthly basis. There's some activities that happen on a quarterly basis, and then there's a few things that happen on a yearly basis. But ultimately, we provide the full infrastructure managed services in Cohesive Cloud. Okay. Single source. So Cohesive has a large number of offerings, right? As Joe mentioned, Tyler's mentioned, and Bill has talked about as well. We provide a number of different options, right? So we're not just focused on hosting. We provide digital strategy. We do system integration, enterprise asset management, and the data services as well. So we're here to support you depending on what your organizational requirements are. And then lastly is competitive pricing. So we've gone through the process of building out a very competitive model. We've looked at other offerings such as the platform as a services in AWS and Azure, and we've built a model which allows us to be able to pass some of the savings off to you as an organization because of the efficiencies that we've put in place, such as automation. Next slide. And then just a few more details around our three offerings. Of course, please reach out to us. We do have quite a bit of documentation on our offering levels. I had mentioned this before. We've got Cohesive Cloud Silver. This is our entry level offering. Okay, so there is a different set of features that are applicable to Silver. We do deploy Cohesive Cloud Silver architecturally slightly different, right? So this allows us to be able to reduce some of the infrastructure costs, right? So Cohesive Cloud Silver is deployed on single node OpenShift, where Cohesive Cloud Gold and Platinum are deployed on the OpenShift distributed platform. Okay, there is some nuances between Cohesive Cloud and Gold and Platinum, but this allows us to be able to ultimately scale up and scale down the overall topology of the deployment. With Platinum, we do give you the ability to have 4 nines, so 99.99 availability. Where Gold, we've really reduced this a little bit to 99.9 and have been able to pass off that cost savings to our customers. Next slide. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Jeff. And then, so now we're going to talk increasing ROI. What can you leverage out of the box to increase your productivity and reliability from Maximo? Next slide, please. So, and then you can do one more click. So we're going to be talking about manage, and this is from the Institute of Asset Management. It's an older model that I like to use because at a high level, this is your enterprise asset management process from define all the way through resource control, and you bring it back in, you measure and assess and feed it back into your loop. So manage has 20 modules, over 100 applications. Scheduler and mobile are now included. So you'll see that in the next, and can you click one more, Bill? So I overlapped with a process map that simply says, from your entire enterprise asset management process, manage can handle everything. However, there's certain features that get massively enhanced if you have the application. So that's your overall process map with what you can do from defining, assessing, maintenance control, resource control, what overall application do you need? And then one more click, please, Bill. And then I laid it on top to where you could see, okay, from a define, improvement, management control, resource control, that manage can handle everything from EAM perspective. And then from mass dashboards, we didn't talk too much about that, but within all of mass, all the applications, the dashboards have been greatly increased. Functionality is amazing, and now they can be done not just by security group, but by actual users, where I can log in and have different dashboards. So everything feeds into manage, and it all feeds in together, which I'll show you. So this shows you that the that Manage can handle EAM, but there's other applications that let you greatly enhance that. Next slide, please. So then from an ROI perspective, we have effectiveness plus efficiency equals ROI. And then we have metrics within efficiency and metrics within effectiveness. So we need 8 values to determine your benchmark. For effectiveness, we deal with proactive work, conditioning or triggering work based on condition indicators. And then efficiency, how efficient are we in our planning, our scheduling, and then with our wrench time, are we maximizing our wrench time? Are we even tracking that? So there are 8 values. Replacement asset value, simply put, all your assets in your power plant, how much does it cost to replace all of them? How much of your maintenance budget goes towards actual replacement? And then inventory level, how much do you carry in warehouse or warehouses? And then your yearly maintenance wages, your personnel, how much are their overall cost to employ everyone? And then what's your number of availability from a maintenance personnel perspective? How much of your work is proactive, how much of your work is planned, and then how much are you utilizing your wrench time. So those are the 8 areas we look at, and then we determine based on ROI. And then what can Mass do from a managed perspective, and then add-ons. Next slide, please. So for effectiveness, I laid out, these are managed applications. You can get creative with other ones to increase effectiveness, but different applications I put here, they all feed into monitor, mobile, assist, predict, visual inspection, and health. But these are your out-of-the-box applications that we can use to track and improve our effectiveness for manage. And then on the right side is these are the out-of-the-box applications for efficiency. And then everything feeds into the applications. I put supply chain because there's multiple applications. So we have different applications just out of the box that we can increase our effectiveness and our efficiency. The next slide, please. So this is a potential of failure model. So we have proactive, preventative, and reactive. So what we have is from a point of detection, and that's where I talked about from Monitor, one of the applications I really like, that you can see up front, hey, there's been an anomaly, whether it's a vibration analysis, whatever it may be, that there's been a point of detection, and we can become proactive. We can now plan and schedule. Do we need to order that asset? Do we need appropriate lead time? Where do we need to bring it in? How much time do we have from an efficiency standpoint? And then the normal cost for being proactive is 1x, and I put a dollar sign. It's regardless of the currency, it's usually 1x. So what is the cost to just align, lubricate, any sort of calibration needed, and then your proper time for planning and scheduling. Make sure you have availability, resources, and then if you need to order the part. So it just decreases your cost immensely. And then if you're preventative, then you're running it down. You're running your asset through downtime. You're having increased wear and tear. You could have downstream components potentially harmed. And then you have potential costs for requisition based on lead times and do you have availability? Do you need to ship it quicker? So preventative maintenance is still cheaper than being reactive, but it's much more expensive than proactive. And then if you're reactive, asset failure occurs, other components have been harmed. This is minimum 10x of overall cost of being proactive compared to reactive. There's a very high percentage for other components to fail, that you're doing work on downtime and not on off shifts or outage, and you're losing overall production in the plant. And then next slide, please. So first you get smart, then you get quick. It's what my boss always says. It's one of our key slogans. And when it comes to maintenance, some people will balk at getting fast. What we really mean is you become more effective and efficient to where you're not redoing work, you're getting it up front. So first you got to understand everything. So what I did was I highlighted the cost savings and the potential savings. And this is from an improvement of getting into becoming more proactive. We have 2 targets there. That's why I have 2 lines for cost savings. So what is your current amount of work that's proactive? And what is your target to become more proactive instead of reactive? And those are your cost savings. And the same thing with the reduction in parts usage. Do you need to order overnight, shipment? How much do you have waiting in the back because you're being more reactive, you're holding inventory? So we have both savings, whether from your current to get to a target percentage of being proactive work. And with efficiency, Same with potential savings, whether or not you're just planning and scheduling, but you're actually optimizing your wrench time. So those are their main attributes we're looking at. Increase your wrench time to where if you have 2,000 maintenance hours for the week and you have 1,500 planned work to do, did you finish all that? And then if not, why? And then what'd you do with the other 500 hours? So we're looking at maximizing wrench time, decreasing your inventory level because you're triggering work based on conditions to where you're getting your asset prior to proactively instead of reactively, and then we're turning work from preventative and reactive into more proactive. Next slide, please. And then this is the actual ROI. This comes from data from a client that we've had before. This is our actual real numbers that we've used. We do conservative ROIs, and then we do from a low maturity, average, good, and world class. So we do 4 different levels. So we say, where are you currently based on proactive work, inventory level, maintenance cost, all of that. Where are you currently from a maturity standpoint? And where do you want to get? And what does it take to get there? And then we show if you get from low to average or average to good, there's your savings. So for this, you're having improvements in effectiveness and efficiency. That led to a savings of almost $3 million in labor and over $5 million in material costs. So over $8 million are saved after 5 years. The client actually came back to us and said, "You saved us more than this." So we know we do a conservative estimate here, but we saved them well over $8 million in 5 years. And then with the estimated costs and the ROI metrics, the ROI we showed on 3 years was 10.53%. So we have the total overall cost, and what we do is we estimate the software cost, and this can be broken down into months. If the project isn't multiple years and it's just 1 year, we can break this down by months. But what we show is we can get you more effectiveness, we can get you more efficiency, and when that happens, this is how much you save. So we use what's out of the box from Maximo within Manage to get you more proactive. And there's applications that help you become much more proactive. So that's why I say we can still leverage what we have out of the box with Manage, but with Monitor and AI, we can get you from that 35% proactive work into 85% proactive work. So regardless of what you purchase, you're going to make a higher ROI becoming more proactive. And then next slide, please. And then this goes back to what I said at the beginning, just to reinforce, we are offering a free mass upgrade evaluation. So where are you? We want to reduce the risk. We want to increase your confidence, improve the readiness, reliability, and then actually show you based on software what we can do with your processes. We could actually optimize your ROI. That's it for me. Thank you. And then off to you, Elke.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you all for that informative session. We have time for some questions from the chat box. So first question, our organization is looking at a cloud provider, OpenShift managed services. Can you give me some insight into those offerings?
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah, so there is, so I think what you're referring to is the Red Hat OpenShift managed service providers on both AWS and Azure. So there's something called ARO, and then there's also something called ROSA. So those are the two platform as a service solutions, okay, that both AWS and Azure provide. Yeah, so this kind of goes back to there's lots of different, there's lots of different ways, or I guess options that an organization can deploy IBM Maximo application suite on, right? So it is a viable solution for sure, obviously. So it does provide you an OpenShift container platform on the public cloud provider. One of the common myths that I find is when I'm having conversations with customers around these platform as a service solutions is that Red Hat OpenShift skills or administration or people are not necessarily required. Okay. I think that's really a myth, especially when it comes to IBM Maximo Application Suite, where when you're actually deploying the application level part of the solution, you actually need significant OpenShift skills, right? So I think there's some real considerations there around those offerings. Okay, so and the second part of this, I think, is an important part is the responsibility matrix, right? So, something like Cohesive Cloud, ultimately we take care of everything for you, right? So from the network all the way to the application level, this is all going to be managed, set up, managed by Cohesive Cloud engineers, completely managed for you. Where when you start looking at some of these other providers such as ARO or Rosa, there is a difference, in responsibility, right? So of course the public cloud providers can have certain levels of responsibilities versus what you're going to be responsible for on the application level. Okay. Certainly feel free to reach out to us. This is a fairly large topic that we've been finding, that we've been having with our customers, right? But again, review the responsibilities matrix. Make sure that you understand the roles and responsibilities of all the providers that you're looking at, right? So that's my recommendation. And of course, there's lots of information out there that we have on that. Feel free to reach out to us if you want.
Thank you, Jeff. If there are no other questions, we can then conclude our webinar. I want to thank again our speakers for joining us today, as well as you, our attendees, for listening today. We have additional information available on our website in the form of blog posts, articles, case studies, and even brochures. If you want to really reach out and discuss your strategic path forward, please do. And you can also reach out via our website. That is a wrap for today's webinar. Tyler, Joe, Bill, and Jeff, I want to thank you again, and I wish everyone a very great day.
Thanks, everybody.
So
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.